But interval notation is a different way to write inequalities, okay? So if you think back to, and I'm going to start kind of in the middle here, but that's fine. This right here, this is saying -2 is less than or equal to x is less than 5. So this is saying actually x is between -2 and 5. X can equal -2 because you got less than or equal to, but it cannot equal 5 because you have a less than sign. So if you remember way back when doing a number line chart like this, and I have -2, we'll put a 0 and a 5. Previously, what you would do is an open dot and a closed dot, and they may even show you that in an explanation. So -2 is less than or equal to x. X is between those. So my line is going to be right here in between -2 and 5. But what you got to figure out is what's happening at -2 and 5. So at -2, it's less than or equal to. What I do is a closed circle to signify that it can equal -2. And at 5, since it's less than, I do an open circle because it cannot equal 5. So it can only be where it's a solid circle or a line. Y'all kind of remember that a little bit on that interval line? Okay, so this right here is called inequality notation. Inequality. That's called inequality notation, and then that's like the graph of it. What we're looking at is interval notation. Interval notation is going to take that graph and it's going to do basically the same thing, but instead of using an open circle and a closed circle, it's going to use a parentheses and a bracket. So it's going to use a bracket when it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So you have interval notation. You do a bracket when it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So the bracket signifies that it can equal that. And then you do a parentheses when it's not equal to. So when it's just less than or greater than. So you do a parentheses when it's less than or greater than. So basically what's happening here is instead of doing the closed dot and the open dot, you are doing a bracket and a parentheses. Okay? So it's just a different notation. Now, mathematicians are lazy and want to write things fast, so they do not want to graph that every time. So the way you write this in true interval notation is you just write the graph basically. So you say, I have a bracket at -2, and then it goes to 5, but it does not equal 5, so I do a parentheses. Okay? And this is just taking that graph and putting it there. So this is the interval notation of this. Those are the same thing. And that's just a quicker way to write it. And that's kind of why mathematicians invented it, because it's just a lot faster to write it that way than it is the other way. So you'll get to a point where you don't have to really graph these. You can just say 3 is less than x is less than 10. Okay? So you would say, okay, x is between 3 and 10. And then it's a less than on both sides, so I do a parentheses on both sides. Okay, or -10 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 0. Then we can do 0. So on this one, x is between -10 and 0, but it's brackets on both sides because it's less than or equal to on both sides. Okay. Now when it gets a little bit tougher is when you have something like x is greater than 5. If you get stuck, just draw a quick graph. And what I mean by a quick graph is like a number line. Okay, x is greater than 5. So, x is greater than 5. So it's going to be, my line's going to go this way, greater than 5. And then it's greater than, it's not greater than or equal to, so I do a parentheses. So the parentheses, so I have a parentheses at 5, and then it goes forever to the right. What word do we use forever in math? Infinity. So I just do 2 circles like that because when I try to do that, it gets all crooked. So infinity always has a parentheses with it because it never equal infinity. But this, like if you get stuck, draw the graph real quick. And the trick here is the saying only works when the variable's on the left, but we almost always put the variable on the left. When the variable's on the left, arrow points to the right, graph goes to the right, infinity's on the right. Okay, so that kind of it always trends like that. So when the variable's on the left, you always have that. The arrow goes to the right, graph points to the right, infinity's on the right. I say that because when you have something like x is less than or equal to -2, again, we'll draw the graph real quick just to see it. So less than or equal to -2, that's going to be a bracket at -2, and it's going to go forever to the left because it's less than. So we want, since my arrow's pointing to the right, left, and my graph's going to the left, I'm going to put an infinity on the left. So I do -2 bracket, and on this side, since I'm going to the left, I do negative infinity, since the negative numbers are to the left. Okay. So yeah, you'll get to a point where you don't have to graph it every time, but it is nice to go ahead and like think about that for a second. So the way you do this without graphing it every time is just to say, okay, x is greater than or equal to 8, -8, so it's going forever to the left, or sorry, forever to the right, so it's -8, it's greater than or equal to, so it's a bracket, it's going forever to the right, so I put infinity on the right. Okay. On this one, my arrow's pointing to the left, so infinity is going to go on the left. I have 7, it's less than, so it's a parentheses, and since my infinity is on the left, I put a negative. So there's 2 rules to think about here to kind of help you as well. You can look at the arrow to the left, so my infinity is going to be on the left, or arrow to the right, infinity is going to be on the right. But it's always the small number to the big number. Like you always put the small one on the left and the big one to the right. Like that's the way our brains work. We read left, right. So you put the small one on the left, the big one to the right. So like 5 is less than infinity. Negative infinity is less than -2. -8 is less than infinity. And then you always, I think the other trick is always use a parentheses with infinity. Like infinity always has parentheses. Infinity always has parentheses. So let me write that out. And then I guess I could say arrow direction equals graph direction equals the infinity side, if that makes sense. So if the arrow's pointing to the left, the graph is going to go to the left, and infinity is going to be on the left. But the small and big also helps with that. That's just a different way to think about it. Like, you know, the smaller number is always going to go on the left, the bigger number is always going to go on the right. And then, of course, the other thing that I wrote up here, like if it's a bracket, if it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, you do a bracket. If it's less than or greater than, you do a parentheses. All right.